Alright, welcome folks. It's pretty much a continuation of the next video because I'm catching up on footage. So this is the next fishing reel story. That's what we call them, fishing reels. So on this film, on this part of the story, I'm just gonna do a quick recap. Not a lot happened, but I did want to give you my take on, the story so far. So, it was the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of February, the following weekend after the trip with Mike. So that would have been on the 14th, 15th, and 16th. I had been in communication with Ben this whole time because we exchanged numbers. And by this point, I kind of knew that I wanted to get my own bait. And one of the things I've been researching a lot have been sand fleas. So if you're interested in knowing what I know about sand fleas, for the most part, I learned everything I know off of YouTube University. So if you go to my page and you go to my playlist, you'll see sand fleas. Watch those videos and that'll be a great primer for where to start. So I got myself a rake. I'm not used to pointing yet. I got a rake for sand fleas. And then I have a catch bucket, a 5-gallon that I customized to accept sand fleas in a more natural habitat for them, with the ability to rinse them and everything. So it's really neat. So I have that going for me there. And overall, it was, gosh, not used initially because Ben's girlfriend had an event at Turtle Fest in Juno, which is north of Fort Lauderdale, my Pompano Beach area. So we're up there, and the idea was for me to meet up with Ben. And it started in the morning, basically getting ready, getting all the gear. I took every piece of gear I could think of, freshwater, saltwater, every rod, anything and everything that I had fishing. It all came with me because, again, I didn't know what to expect, and I wanted to be ready for whatever. If this fishing spot didn't work, I was going to do something else. At this point, I didn't have my fishing license, but you can always just get your fishing license online, myfwc.com, and I'll see if I can put a link in the description. I don't know if it's allowed or not, but whatever. At myfwc.com, and you go ahead and sign up for your fishing license. That'll come in later for the story purposes, another video. So we're out there at Juno, and I get there because I wanted to get there early so I can get good parking, like to the front of the parking spots. And after that, I went to the local place called Juno Baits, which is a little down the road, I would say. Check it out, Ben. It looks darker than it is. Good morning. But it's pretty bright out, actually. And they closed down the roads, so you can pretty much just like run on the road. It's pretty cool. And I got myself a bucket of live shrimp, and I ended up getting some floats, which I'm actually going to pause the video and get for you because I don't mind a little show and tell. Majestic tackle box. And I'll put more videos of this stuff in the more images of these in the description below. Gotta have to clean these out a little bit better and make sure they don't rust. All right, so these are GT ice cream floats, and they swear by them down there. And they're pretty good. They're pretty good, from what I hear. They're very good lures. essentially speaking, it's a float and it's got some weight in it. And they come in three sizes: 1.5, which is these two right here, 1.5. And they're different because one's condensed and the other one isn't. So just keep that in mind. 2 ounce and 3 ounce, which is like this big boy here. So I picked those up and we proceeded to go fishing at the pier. I had lent my lure to Ben and he put it on one of his rods, the Chaos rod. And there's this guy named Julian and he was going to show me how to cast because I'm still learning how to cast properly to where you're retaining the line with your finger and then you let it go as you're casting and then you let the line unspool before you activate the bail. And the reel, like the rod, the reel were set up differently. And this guy apparently he activated the bail too quickly while it was still on spooling. So it locked down on the line and the end of the lure just basically went ting, took everything off of the lure and then took everything off of the line, excuse me, not the lure. Took everything else off of the line and then I lost one of my GT floats. So if you go to Juno, you're going to see a lot of these. They're apparently very popular. They're hard to find anywhere else locally, from what I can tell. I know that you can get them online. But if you are going to get them, consider that there's two different kinds of needles. These are the ones that are called needles. This one's a lot bigger, like shortened down. And then this one is a lot more streamlined. They're both the same weight. They just look differently. So if you're going to get them, make sure that you see it in person or that you know which one you're getting because they're both under the same name. But anyway, um, we spent most of the day fishing. It was pretty quiet. We didn't get a lot, but we met a lot of good people and we made a lot of good experiences. I mean, I think the funniest thing that happened over this trip was one of those like not so great moments in personalities, if you will. There's this dude, and this is where the story really is gonna encapsulate everything because it was a really fun trip. But this is really the majority of what happened that made it crazy. So there's this dude, and he's in the corner. So Juno Pier, think of it, and you're gonna see it on the screen by this point. But it's basically a rectangle with a long end that reaches shore. So this dude is on the left-hand side of the pier, and he had his drink and he had a couple rods down. I can't remember if they were in the water or if they were just dead rods. Dead rod means a rod that's line is all the way spooled and it's just sitting on the edge, doing nothing. So this other guy is fishing, and when he's sitting there, well, not sitting, while he's fishing, apparently he knocked the guy's rod over a little bit, and he kind of just like grabbed it and just propped it back up to where it was. And a lot of things you got to keep in mind is this is normal to happen. I mean, really, realistically, it's as big as it is, it's a confined space, and there's never enough space with situations like this because ideally you want the whole thing to yourself, right? In a perfect world, everyone would have their own pier. So he knocks it over, he picks it up, and he doesn't think twice about it. But this other guy, um, he was very upset and he was very offended. He's like, dude, you kicked my rod over, blah, 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 blah. And he just kept getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And the other dude, he wasn't trying to instigate the fight at this point, I think, but he was definitely standing up for himself, which I think there's nothing wrong with that. He was If you come at me, I'm going to defend myself type of mentality, you know? And um, it it kind of just kept escalating, but back and forth, I would say, where the first dude that got offended, we're going to call him Dude A. And then the other guy is going to be Dude B. So Dude A, the angry dude, he's just sitting there going like, "Oh, you kicked my drink, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna go get Randy." And the other dude's just not having it, right? So he's like, "Go get Randy." And then the other guy just kept going off and off and off and off about it. And at this point, we're like, "Man, I kind of want to meet Randy now," you know? Uh, so dude B is just, still fishing while he's doing all this. And he's like, "Go get Randy! Go get Randy!" And then at one point, he's just like really screaming and like, "Go get Randy!" And this dude is just like not having it. Like, dude A is just like not having it at all. Um, and dude B had a friend, so we're going to call him dude C. So B and C are sitting there, like, "Bro, like, don't come messing with me. Like, it ain't going to be fun for you," kind of thing. And eventually, dude A eventually got Randy and the other guy, the other gentleman at the pier. His name is Matt. So Matt and Randy came up, who were managing the pier, and they heard both sides of the stories and they escorted Dude A out. And when they escorted Dude A out, everyone was sort of like clapping, cheering, just it was really souring the mood and the pier because you're there to relax, you're there to chill. You're not really there to hear this dude getting upset and yelling and screaming. So it wasn't really great. They kicked him out. It is what it is. And during the next hour, um, I had gotten my line. Like I spooled it wrong on the reel, and it was starting to come out, so I had to unspool it all. But I did it in like the worst way possible, and I did it like putting it on a bottle with a little bit of water, and then I let it drift. But it was like starting to drift under people's lines and because I did it on the pier, and I was like, you know what, man, like this is not a great idea. But then I sort of already started it, and I had to like go with it. While I'm doing this, there's another dude that saw the line, and then he just started like hand spooling it on his hand. And as soon as he realized that it was my line, he just grabs it and he just drops it back in the water, making like a giant knot that I could have fixed myself. And so that's what I was doing for that remaining hour. And I did as much as I could. Dude B and C are still there at the end of the pier. And I remember that I had gotten my line free enough where I was sitting down back by my gear and I was starting to re-spool my reel, the Sea Lion reel. And I remember police coming by and police essentially uh, going to escort both dude B and C out. So most likely what happened is dude A kept complaining enough. There was an event happening, the Turtle Fest. So dude A was complaining enough where he got dude B and C kicked out. And as they're getting walked down the pier, I got my line in my hand and I got my rod. And I go up to these two dudes and I go like, "Hey fellas, like, what's going on?" It's like, "We don't really know. They're just getting kicked out." I was like, "Well, that's not really fair. That we're sticking up for everybody." And then, people just kept going like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe we should say something. Maybe we should say something." And for me, it was like a ticking clock, right? Because they're walking down the pier. Eventually, they will go away. So there I am trying to figure this out. And I'm going, well, maybe I should say something is going to get away from them. Like there's a time limit on this. So I say to myself, no, the time is now. So just so that you get a better understanding, I'm wearing short khaki shorts, like golf shorts type things. Um, I got a long sleeve shirt with a buff like the one that you see behind me, and I had it up to my eyes like this with polarized sunglasses and my fishing hat, not this one. And I had a fanny pack. You'll see later videos why I have the pack like that. With my knife sticking out, I have my pliers and my essential gear like my wallet and like things to clip lines with and stuff like in a serviceable area. And I'm running down the pier after police and these two dudes. And I'm just lucky I didn't get tased because it would have been, I think it just would have added, a little chef's kiss to the story. So there I am running down with line on my left hand with my rod, with knives, just running at police. And I eventually meet them at one of the pavilions where the dudes are cleaning off their gear from the salt water before they're getting taken away. And I tell them, like, listen, they're innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. Like, they were standing up for us. You know, if you need to, like, I'll give you my ID. I'll give you my statement. It's just not fair. And they were like, no, it's okay. Listen, we weren't catching much anyway. We don't want any more trouble or anything really. We're just going to go. And I said, all right, listen, man, I appreciate for what you did. I'm sorry that I had to come to this. And I really don't understand why decisions like this are made because if you, what kind of country do we live in where we can't stand up for ourselves? Like it, somebody did something bad and you stood up for yourself without even having to resort to violence. It was just a simple act of standing up for yourself. And I didn't like that. So the rest of the day was kind of quiet, but I remember during that hour that they were there, right? Like I walk up to them and when I thanked them, I said, like, y'all, you don't understand how funny you were. Like you're in the moment and then it was real, but y'all don't understand how funny it was. Because we're sitting there and we just keep seeing this guy keep saying he's gonna go get Randy, and then you're just going, yeah, I'm gonna go get Randy too. Yeah, go get Randy, go get Randy, go get Randy. And it was just the funniest thing ever. So I told him, like, at one point we're like, dude, we want to meet Randy now. Like, what's going on? And when Randy did get there, by the way, he's like, I've never met that dude before, so I really don't know who he is. Um, so dude B, I'm talking to dude B, and I'm telling him all this, and I tell him, I was like, dude, the way you were saying go get Randy was freaking hilarious. Like that needs to be on a t-shirt, bro. And I remember that anyone that was there was laughing too. It was funny, like you got to laugh at life sometimes because if not, you're just going to be even more miserable. So, I said I'm going to make a t-shirt out of that, And we kind of finished the afternoon. Not a lot happened. It was a pretty quiet little lull in Juneau at that moment. Usually it's pretty hectic. It has its hectic moments. Don't get me wrong. It just wasn't at that moment. And then we kind of have to leave early because his girlfriend's just finishing the event and they're basically having to pack up and everything. And I didn't want to really stay there by myself. Not really wanting to experience the pier without my buddy at this point. So that ends that. And I remember Sunday. Yeah, so this was a 3-day weekend, actually, 4-day, because it was Friday afternoon, Saturday fishing, the Juno Pier thing. Then Sunday, my mother was moving out, so I couldn't go to the pier at Juno again, and instead I was organizing and setting everything up for when I was going to be doing this streaming like I am now. And then on Monday, we go back to um, we go back to our pier at Pompano, and I remember it was a cold, cloudy day. Ben in the morning had caught a black drum around like 14 inches or something like that. I could be wrong. Um, and I'd been making this lures. Like I had this vision, right, of what I wanted to do, but we'd been busy all. I had been busy all weekend enough not to be able to like repack and remake, like respool my lines or, um, and make my rods the way I wanted them to be. So I wanted to make this lure for night fishing because that's mostly what I do. Because when I finish work, I can go night fishing. Like the sun is just barely setting. So I have this vision of this lure that I'm trying to make, and I had made the prototypes. And I won't get too much into it now because I'm still working on patents and stuff. So I'm sitting there all day making these lures. Like I can barely move my hands with, it was just cold enough that my hands were not articulating. I didn't have the dexterity to have that level of motor function. But the day was pretty quiet. Not a lot was happening. And one of the things that did happen though is Eric came back. Eric just was stopping by because he lives close to the beach, and I thanked him for for that day, for that Friday of the week previous, and I gave him the lures, and he said, "You know what? You convinced me. I'm gonna stay out fishing for a little bit." He came by, and we were all just hanging out. It was a great time. We met some really cool people. We met some people that were, you know, I don't know if they were new, but new to me, to being at the pier, and they're just doing their thing. And it was just a fun environment. It was really chill at the end of the day. I wish you could have like more like cookouts at the pier. I think that'd be cool if they allowed that. Um, just to really enjoy the experience, and not have to be miserable because you can't use the restroom or eat. That sucks. But anyway, so we get started with like the sun going down, and I'm sitting there trying to finish all these lures, and it was rough to say the least. It being cold, and I think we got a couple bites on the lures that I made, but nothing crazy. And then after that, I think that was the end of it on Monday evening because I had to go back to work on that Tuesday. Um, so yeah, that was essentially a recap, so to speak. And if I have any pictures related to this, you'll have seen them by now, being posted along with their relevance of where it was in the chronological order of the stories. And we'll go from there. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the